Cinema, the magic vehicle, a comprehensive guide. Journey 1, 1913 to 1950.
Today we're really opening up a fascinating piece of film history.
We are. We're using cinema, the magic vehicle, as our guide.
Right, and it's great because it doesn't just list films. It connects them to everything that was going on at the time.
Politics, society, culture.
Yeah.
It shows how they all fed into what ended up on screen, especially in those early days.
Absolutely crucial for understanding early cinema. And today's deep dive, it's all about a film that just screams that connection. We're looking at the 1920 silent classic, The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, Das Kabinett de Dr. Caligari, directed by Robert Wiene.
A cornerstone.
Totally. And our source highlights its double significance. It's seen as this huge artistic leap forward.
Visually, it was like nothing else.
But also, right from the start, it was meant as a pretty sharp political metaphor for its time.
Yeah, it really taps into the anxieties of the era. It reminds me of that question from the poet Holderlin, is shadow the country of our soul? Caligari feels like a visual answer to that, a deeply unsettling one. It basically kicks off the whole German expressionist wave in cinema. Hugely important.
Okay, so let's unpack that, starting with the politics. Because the original idea from the writers, Karl Mayr and Hans Janowitz, was not subtle at all.
Not even close.
So the basic plot, you've got this character, Dr. Caligari. He's a hypnotist, shows up at a fair in this town, Holstenwall.
Right, with his medium, Cesare, the somnambulist.
Played by Conrad Veidt, yeah. And Caligari basically sends Cesare out at night to commit these awful, terrifying crimes.
And this setup, according to the writers themselves, was absolutely intended as a direct hit on German imperialism during World War I.
Wow, okay, so not just general unease, but a specific target.
Oh yes, very specific. Caligari, the sinister controller.
He's the Kaiser, or the state authority.
Pretty much, yeah. Representing that manipulative authority. And Cesare, the sleepwalker, doing these terrible things without question.
He's the German people, manipulated, compliant.
That was the intent. Janowitz, one of the writers, he'd seen the war machine up close, the indifference of it all. He explicitly wanted a distorted mirror image of the bankrupt authoritarian state.
To show where the real terror was coming from?
Exactly. From the top down.
And their original script ending, that really drove the point home, didn't it?
It did. No pulling punches there. In their version, Francis, he's the fiancé of the girl who gets kidnapped.
Jane Austen, right.
Right. So Francis and the townspeople, they chase the Cesare, they figure out Caligari's the bad guy, they hunt him down.
And where does he end up?
He flees into a mental asylum, and plot twist. He's revealed to be the asylum director.
Whoa! So the authority figure is the madman controlling everything. That's unambiguous.
Completely. A direct attack on the establishment.
Okay, but that's not the ending we usually see. This is where it gets complicated, right? The producers stepped in.
They did. They felt it needed. Well, softening. They added a framing device.
Ah, the famous frame story.
Exactly. The film we have now starts and ends with Francis telling this story. And it turns out he's a patient in an asylum.
An asylum run by
a kindly-looking director who, yes, is also called Dr. Caligari.
So the whole terrifying story might just be the delusions of Francis, the patient.
Right. It shifts the whole thing. Is the horror real, or is it all in his head? It turns the political critique into maybe a psychological study.
Making authority seem potentially benign again, or at least making the critique uncertain.
Precisely. And people have argued about this change for a century. Our source actually says its significance is maybe a bit overblown sometimes. But you do have to wonder, like you said, would it have been as successful or even distributed with that original, really aggressive ending?
Did the ambiguity make it safer, more palatable for audiences, maybe even for censors?
It's a good question. But the source also stresses that even with a framed story, that original anti-authoritarian vibe, that deep sense of unease reflecting Germany in 1919, it's still there. It's baked into the film's look and feel.
The paranoia couldn't be completely contained by the frame.
Yo, wait, it permeates everything.
Yeah.
Which leads us right into the film's other major contribution. The visual style. The Expressionism.
Yeah, let's shift gears to that because, okay, the politics were vital context, but the look of Caligari is what really blew people's minds and changed things.
Absolutely. It owes much more to painters like Georg Grosz or Oskar Kokoschka.
Those very angular, distorted, anxious paintings.
Exactly. Than it does to, say, traditional Gothic horror stories. It's about capturing an inner state, visually.
And that visual choice was perfectly timed, wasn't it? It reflected the mood in Germany.
Oh, completely. The Weimar Republic's early years. I mean, think about it. Defeat, insecurity, economic chaos, political violence like the Spartacist uprising.
Everything felt unstable, broken.
And the film looks like that feeling. It's a visual representation of that societal breakdown and anxiety.
How did they achieve it? It wasn't through normal sets, right?
Not at all. It was through these incredibly striking, deliberately artificial, two-dimensional painted sets. The source mentions Gaudi's architecture, that kind of intense, almost nightmarish complexity.
But even more theatrical, more distorted.
Way more. Walls slant at impossible angles, chimneys are crooked, corridors twist unnaturally, doors seem painted onto walls or open into just blackness.
It must have been incredibly disorienting to watch.
And to act in, presumably. That was the whole point. Reject realism, embrace the psychological. The style wasn't just about Francis's potential madness. It reflected a kind of societal sickness. The environment itself feels hostile, warped.
Creating this pervasive paranoid atmosphere you mentioned.
Exactly.
Now, here's a detail I love from the source. You'd think this incredibly bold, revolutionary visual approach came from some grand artistic vision, unlimited resources.
You would, wouldn't you? Like a statement piece.
But no, it came from, well, being broke.
Yeah, it's one of those fantastic accidents of film history. The production company, Decla, just didn't have a lot of money. Post-war budgets were tight.
So no huge realistic sets possible.
Right, they couldn't afford them.
Yeah.
So they were kind of forced into using these stylized painted flats in a smaller studio. The look was basically a budget solution.
Amazing. Necessity becomes the mother of Expressionism. So the art directors Ryman, Worm, Rohrig, they were part of the Der Sturm group.
Yeah, already experimenting with avant-garde ideas, they took this limitation and just ran with it, turned it into the defining look.
And it was a massive hit.
Huge. And it had this immediate ripple effect. German cinema suddenly got really interested in highly designed, studio-controlled visual.
To the point where, as the source says, ambitious German film sort of locked itself into studios for many years to come, trying to replicate that controlled environment.
Which, interestingly, leads to a major point of critique in our source material. Bit of a contradiction, really.
Oh, how so?
Well, despite Caligari being undeniably important, kicking off this whole movement, the source actually argues that those hyper-stylized sets were, in the long run, a blind alley.
A blind alley, wow, okay.
Yeah.
How?
The argument is that they actually held back the development of cinematic language in other ways. That extreme theatricality, the painted-on shadows. It was so specific, so artificial.
It wasn't really building on what cinema could uniquely do.
Kind of. The source calls it a curious one-off visual effect.
Yeah.
Memorable, iconic, absolutely. But ultimately, maybe not the most productive path forward for film as a medium. It was too tied to painting and theater.
That's a really provocative take on such a landmark film.
It is, and it ties into the acting, too. The source points out that really only Werner Krauss as Caligari and Conrad Veidt as Cesare fully embraced that expressionist performance style.
That really exaggerated, almost dance-like movement.
Yeah, it needed that to match the sets, but apparently not everyone in the cast was quite on the same page stylistically.
Whereas other films maybe achieved more consistency later.
Right. Like Karl-Heinz Martin's von Morgen's Bis Mitternacht, also from 1920, our source suggests that film had a sort of greater purity. Everyone, the actors in the sets, were fully in that expressionist mode. Caligari broke the ground, but maybe it wasn't the purest example in execution.
Okay, so if the crazy sets were a blind alley, what did German cinema effectively take from Caligari and run with? What was the lasting, useful legacy?
Well, that would be the chiaroscuro, the mastery of light and shadow.
Okay, explain that.
So later German filmmakers, maybe they ditched the obviously painted sets, but they learned from Caligari and theater how to use dramatic lighting. Deep shadows, pools of light, creating mood, psychology, tension. But using actual light and camera techniques, not just paint.
So manipulating light became the thing, rather than just the set design itself?
Exactly. It became a hallmark of German cinematography for years. That ability to sculpt with light and shadow owes a debt to the atmosphere Caligari created. But it was adapted into something much more inherently cinematic.
That makes sense. A more flexible, powerful tool.
Precisely. More suited to the medium in the long run.
Okay, so let's try and wrap this up. Our deep dive into the cabinet of Dr. Caligari shows it's this This incredible collision of forces.
Definitely. Political anger after the war.
Budget problems forcing artistic innovation.
Resulting in this revolutionary visual style that just captured the fractured psyche of a nation.
It defined a whole movement, gave shape to that inner turmoil, a true masterpiece, even with all the debates around it.
Absolutely. Which leaves us with a final thought for you, our listeners. Something to chew on.
Go for it.
The source praises Caligari's atmosphere, calling it dense, nearly tangible. And it says this was achieved almost entirely through the design and those key performances.
Right.
But it also flat out says the actual film technique, the camera work, the editing, is basically not worth a mention.
Ouch. Okay.
So here's the question. If a film changed cinema history so profoundly, based almost entirely on its theatrical element, the sets, the acting style, and not on its use of the camera, what does that tell us? Does it make you rethink what we mean by cinematic language? Can a film be cinematically revolutionary, primarily through design, even if its camera work is unremarkable for the time?